The forest was alive with whispers. The wind wove through the towering pines, rustling the leaves in hushed conversations only nature could understand. 6-year-old Johanna felt the cool air kiss her cheeks as she stepped into the clearing, her small fingers clutching a stuffed bunny. She had wandered just a little too far from home, but she wasn't afraid, not yet. Then the growl came, low, menacing, close. Johanna froze. A pair of yellow eyes glowed from the shadows. The dog emerged, lean, wild, hungry. It stepped forward, lips curling into a silent snarl. She had no time to scream, and that's when the hero arrived. Before we dive in, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Let's get started. At 6 years old, Johanna was a bright-eyed child with a vivid imagination that brought every corner of her small world to life. She lived with her parents in a modest house near the outskirts of Triberg, a small town nestled in Germany's enchanting Black Forest. Streets curved gently around traditional timber-framed houses, each sporting flower boxes brimming with vibrant geraniums. The early sunlight cast a warm glow over steep rooftops and the slender spires of the local church. Johanna's father worked as a woodcarver, creating elaborate cuckoo clocks that tourists often bought as souvenirs. Her mother ran a cozy bakery on the main street, famous for its buttery pretzels and slices of Schwarzwälder Kirschtorte, Black Forest cake. Even in the morning hours, the scent of freshly baked bread and the cheerful clang of shop bells drifted throughout Triberg's quaint streets. Early spring had arrived, chasing away the final chills of winter. Johanna bounded out of bed that morning with a grin. She was excited. She had been promised a trip to see the Triberg waterfalls later in the week, but for now it was the weekend, and the day stretched before her like an empty canvas. She looked out her bedroom window, which offered a partial view of pine-clad hills. Nestled among them was a small clearing where sometimes she and her father would collect pine cones or mushrooms. Dressed in bright purple overalls and a light cardigan, Johanna trailed into the kitchen. Her mother, wearing a flour-dusted apron, fussed over breakfast, soft-boiled eggs and homemade bread. The table was set simply, a jar of blackberry jam, cutlery, and a plate of butter. "Morning, Schatz," her mother greeted, kissing the top of Johanna's head. "Sleep well?" Johanna nodded and climbed onto a chair, swinging her legs back and forth. "Mama, can I play outside today?" "As long as you stay within the yard," her mother answered. "I have to help at the bakery soon, and your father's working in the workshop. No wandering off too far, understood?" Johanna sighed dramatically. Understood. But the day outside was calling her name, vibrant and full of promise. She devoured her breakfast quickly, wolfing down the jam-smeared bread. Later that morning, while her mother departed for the bakery, Johanna tiptoed to the side door and slipped into the yard. Their property was bordered by a stout wooden fence, but if you walked along the fence's edge to the rear, a small gate led to an old footpath that meandered into the forest. Johanna knew she shouldn't go wandering alone. Her parents had told her so countless times. But she was drawn by the whisper of the pines. The songs of birds beckoned, and the breeze carried the promise of an adventure. She cracked open the gate and peered into the woods. Golden sunlight filtered down, illuminating patches of moss and pine needles. She could still see her house if she stood on tiptoe. Maybe it wasn't so bad to explore just a little bit. Johanna ventured down the trail, counting her steps aloud to keep herself calm. She wasn't exactly scared, but the forest always felt both exciting and eerie, full of friendly birds but also hidden foxes and boars she had only heard about. Eventually, she reached a small clearing ringed by ancient tall pines. The ground here was soft with layers of fallen needles, and a scatter of wildflowers poked through in bright clusters of blue and yellow. Plopping down on a broad stump, Johanna withdrew a small stuffed bunny from her overalls, a gift from her grandmother. "Look, Minnie," she whispered to her toy. "We made it." The clearing was peaceful. Sunlit motes of dust danced in the air, and birds twittered overhead. She felt proud of herself for being brave. This was further than she had ever gone by herself. She looked around hugging Minnie, deciding she would return home soon as she didn't want her parents to worry. Just as Johanna prepared to stand and brush off her overalls, she heard rustling behind the thick trunk of a pine. She froze, heart pounding. It could be a deer or maybe a stray cat. Her eyes darted to the movement. Then, slowly, from behind the tree, a large shape emerged. A dog, lean, with a patchy, tawny coat, ribs visible beneath ragged fur. Its ears lay flat against its head, and its lips curled slightly to reveal sharp teeth. Johanna stood motionless, clutching her stuffed bunny. She had grown up around friendly pets. Neighbors in town had small dogs or cats, but this one had a look of desperation and fear that made her instincts prickle. The dog's eyes glinted yellow in the dappled sunlight, and a low growl resonated in the air, deep and menacing. Uncertain what to do, Johanna took a shaky step backward. Her mouth felt dry. The dog stepped forward, its growl intensifying. She thought about running, but her legs felt locked. Tears pooled in her eyes. She opened her mouth to call for help, but no sound came out. In a flash, the strange dog leaped toward her, snarling. Johanna screamed. Her voice was shrill and panicked. She raised her arms as if to shield herself, but it seemed helpless against the dog's powerful jaws. A swirl of fur, teeth, and terror engulfed her senses. Minnie, her stuffed bunny, fell to the ground, forgotten. Time seemed to slow. Johanna realized she was going to fall, to be hurt, and she felt a flood of dread that made her entire body tremble. The dog's jaws snapped perilously close to her arm. Then, seemingly from nowhere, another presence burst onto the scene. A blur of black and tan fur slammed into the attacking dog, knocking it off balance. Johanna watched, wide-eyed, as this second dog, a German shepherd, planted itself between her and the aggressor. The newcomer barked, a thunderous warning that ricocheted through the clearing. The attacking dog snarled, baring its teeth, but the shepherd held its ground, hackles raised, ears forward in a fierce stance of protection. Fear coiled in Johanna's chest as she realized a dogfight was about to erupt. And yet with that fear came a sliver of hope. She might be saved. The wild dog sprang forward again, teeth snapping, but the shepherd met it head-on with a growl that reverberated in Johanna's bones. They clashed, biting and wrestling, sending a shower of pine needles into the air. Johanna stumbled back, half crawling, desperate to get away from the tangle of fur. Her heart thundered in her chest. Dimly, Johanna heard shouting. A man's voice echoed through the clearing. "Rex, Rex, zurück!" The German word for back soared through the air, but the shepherd seemed too engaged in the fight to heed its master's call. Even so, the dog's presence was the only thing preventing Johanna from being seriously injured. She watched breathless as the shepherd, Rex, managed to maneuver itself onto the aggressor's flank. With a powerful snap of his jaws, Rex forced the stray backward. The smaller dog let out a high-pitched yelp, then sprang away, disappearing, into the undergrowth as suddenly as it had appeared. Panting and trembling, Rex stood in the center of the clearing, muzzle flecked with foam. Moments later, a figure rushed up, an older man wearing worn jeans and a simple flannel shirt. His face was etched with concern as he grabbed hold of Rex's collar. "Oh no, are you all right?" he called to Johanna, scanning her for injuries. "Mein Gott, you're just a child." Johanna's lip quivered. She looked at her arms and legs, expecting to find bite marks or blood. Apart from a few scrapes on her knees where she had stumbled, she was unhurt. Adrenaline surged, leaving her body weak and shaky. She tried to speak but burst into tears instead. The man, breathless and clearly shaken, knelt down. "Breathe, sweetheart. You're safe now. That dog is gone." He gently touched her shoulder. Rex stood guard, still tense, ears perked in alertness, as if prepared for a second attack. In a short while, Johanna calmed enough to speak. "Thank you," she managed to whisper, tears still dripping off her cheeks. She glanced at Rex, the German shepherd who had saved her. The dog blinked at her calmly, protective posture softening. The man introduced himself as Benno Schubert, a retired policeman who had moved to Freiburg a few years ago. Rex was his loyal companion, a well-trained German shepherd who had once assisted him in canine duties. That morning, the pair had been strolling on a nearby path when they heard Johanna's scream and rushed to help. "We heard the yelling, and Rex just bolted," Benno said, still looking at the forest edge, worried that the Stray might return. He's always had strong protective instincts. Johanna nodded, trying to steady her breathing. I was so scared, she admitted in a small voice. Benno offered her a bottle of water from his backpack. She sipped it gratefully, the cool liquid soothing her dry throat. Where do you live? He asked. My house is nearby. I shouldn't have come so far, Johanna confessed, feeling both relief and a pang of guilt. Benno helped her up gently, brushing dirt and pine needles from her overalls. Let's get you home, he said. Rex will lead the way. Clutching his hand, Johanna walked beside him. Rex trotted slightly ahead, nose to the ground, on the lookout. Every so often, Johanna glanced at the shepherd, a deep sense of awe filling her young heart. Though he had saved her life, he seemed calm, almost gentle now that the danger had passed. They found the faint footpath that led toward the little wooden gate in Johanna's backyard. She spotted the roof of her house. Relief swelled. She could see her father's workshop window was open, and a thin spiral of wood shavings blew into the air. Before Johanna could call out, she heard her father's anxious voice. He must have heard the commotion, or realized she was gone. Johanna, Johanna! He emerged from the workshop, eyes wide with alarm. The moment he spotted her with Benno and Rex, he sprinted over. My God, are you okay? He exclaimed, scooping Johanna into his arms. She started crying again, burying her face in her father's shirt. She could feel his heart hammering against her cheek. She was attacked by a stray dog, Benno explained softly, his own expression grave. Rex intervened in time. Johanna's father looked at the shepherd with gratitude. Thank you, both of you. I don't know how to repay you, Benno gestured modestly. We only did what anyone would do. Then, patting Rex's flank, he added, and what a good dog would do. The group entered the yard. Johanna's father ushered them inside, where Johanna's mother, having rushed back from the bakery upon hearing urgent news, greeted them, her face stricken with worry. After several frantic minutes, they got Johanna settled on the sofa, an ice pack on her scraped knee. Her mother knelt beside her, tears brimming. She thanked Benno profusely, unable to find enough words to express her relief. While the adults spoke in hushed, tense tones, Johanna peered at Rex from across the room. The German shepherd sat by the door, ears perked, tail wrapped around his paws. Despite his imposing size, there was a kindness in his dark eyes. He looked at Johanna with an almost human understanding, as if to reassure her that everything would be all right. The next few days were a blur of comfort and concern. Johanna's parents insisted she rest, though physically she had only minor bruises and a sore knee. The real damage was emotional. The nightmares of snapping jaws and growling filled her. Nights, she would jolt awake, soaked in sweat, certain that the wild dog was lunging for her again. Each morning her mother would find her trembling and hold her tight. On the second night after the attack, Johanna's parents whispered about whether they should see a therapist, but Johanna insisted she just needed time and perhaps reassurance. A fleeting memory of Rex's protective stance kept intruding on her nightmares, a barrier against the fear. Still, she often found herself peering out the window, dreading that the stray might be lurking at the edge of the forest. News of the incident spread quickly through the small town. Many expressed alarm that such a stray dog, possibly abandoned or feral, was roaming near residential areas. Some locals volunteered to help the authorities find and safely capture the animal. People recognized Benno Schubert for his quick action, and word got around that his German shepherd had saved the little girl. The name Rex soon became a byword for bravery among the townsfolk. Johanna's father wanted to thank Benno properly, so he invited him over for dinner. The older man arrived a few days later with Rex in tow. The moment Johanna saw the shepherd again, she felt a rush of emotion, a mix of lingering fear and deep gratitude. But Rex's calm presence helped soothe her nerves. The dog wagged his tail gently, as if greeting an old friend. Over hearty bowls, of stew and fresh bread from the bakery, Benno recounted stories of Rex's training back when Benno was a policeman in Stuttgart. He was always the bravest in the unit, Benno said, scratching Rex's ears fondly. But he's also incredibly gentle with children, never once had an incident of aggression. When I retired, I couldn't leave him behind. He's been with me ever since. Johanna listened in awe. She glanced at Rex, who yawned contentedly, settling himself near her feet. A fragile sense of safety started to build within her. If a dog like Rex could exist in the same world as that terrifying stray, maybe not all was lost. Maybe the fear wouldn't always consume her. Despite the reassuring evenings, nightmares still visited Johanna at night. In her dreams, the snarling. Dog's eyes glowed yellow, chasing her through the forest while branches snagged at her clothes. She would run, breath ragged, tripping over roots, certain she wouldn't escape. Then, at the last moment, a thunderous bark would pierce the darkness. Rex's. Bark, and she'd wake up. On one particular night, the nightmare ended differently. She dreamed she was cornered by the stray dog in the same clearing, but instead of Rex arriving, she stood her ground. She felt fear, yes, but also a strange determination. In the dream, she held a stick out, telling the dog to leave her alone, and the dog slunk away. She woke up trembling, but with a new sense of possibility. Perhaps she wasn't powerless. That morning, after a fitful sleep, Johanna found her father in the workshop. "Papa, I want to see Rex again," she said softly, twisting a piece of wood shaving between her fingers. "I feel safer when he's around." Her father regarded her with a mixture of concern and understanding. "Of course, let me call Mr. Schubert." Benno agreed to bring Rex by for a walk, hoping to help Johanna overcome her lingering fears. They chose a well-traveled path near the edge of town, not quite into the deeper forest. The path was lined with wildflowers and small wooden figurines, placed by local artisans as decorations. Families often strolled here on weekends. Johanna clung to her mother's hand at first, every rustle in the bushes making her heart pound. Rex trotted along, his large paws silent on the packed earth. Occasionally, he'd glance back at Johanna, as if checking that she was okay. Benno attempted to coax Johanna into holding Rex's leash. "Here," he said gently, "just for a moment." Her little hand shook as she gripped the leather leash. Rex was strong. She could feel the gentle pull of his movement through the lead, but he was remarkably controlled, matching her pace. They took a few steps, mother beside them, father trailing close behind. Benno kept watch too. The sunlit path felt suddenly safer, as though Rex's presence provided a protective bubble. People they passed gave warm smiles or paused to pet Rex, praising him for his heroics. Johanna began to see that the dog who had saved her wasn't just a fierce protector. He was also beloved in the community. A kindly older woman offered Johanna a pat on the shoulder and said, "You're lucky to have such a brave friend." Johanna's cheeks flushed. Her heart swelled with a cautious pride. Maybe she could learn to be brave too. In the following weeks, Johanna ventured outside more frequently, though she always checked the corners of the yard and the fringes of the forest for any sign of the stray. The community news reported a few sightings of a large, ragged dog near Tipu, the outskirts. Animal control officers placed humane traps in hopes of capturing it safely, but the dog remained elusive. Talk swirled about whether it had been abandoned by negligent tourists or if it was once a guard dog that turned feral. Johanna's father fashioned a wooden plaque in his workshop, engraving it with an image of a German shepherd silhouette and the words, "Thank you, Rex, for saving our daughter." They gave it to Benno, who hung it in his living room with quiet pride. Every time Johanna saw it, she felt a ripple of gratitude and an echo of that day's terror. Yet life rolled on, as it does. The school year ended, and summer arrived in a cascade of bright mornings and clear, warm nights. The tourists flooded into Triberg to see the majestic waterfalls, one of the highest in Germany, and to explore the scenic trails. Johanna's mother's bakery saw lines out the door, and her father's woodcarving shop bustled with new orders. Johanna found herself thinking less about the attack, though she still had nightmares now and then, and more about normal childhood. Adventures, climbing the old apple tree in the yard, playing hide-and-seek with neighborhood kids, sneaking an extra slice of cake from her mother's kitchen. She discovered that courage wasn't about never being afraid. It was about living on despite the fear. At last, her parents decided it was time to bring Johanna to the Triberg waterfalls, a promise they had made before her frightful encounter. They invited Benno and Rex to join, hoping it would be a positive outing that might further ease Johanna's lingering anxiety. The group arrived at the trail leading up to the falls. A gentle mist hung in the air from the crashing water. The roar of the cascading streams filled Johanna's ears. The path wound up alongside wooden bridges, each offering a better view of the tumbling water. Tourists snapped photos, exclaiming, "At the natural splendor." Johanna, holding her mother's hand, felt a tingle of excitement at the sheer size of the waterfalls. Rex strode confidently, sniffing at the wet rocks. Benno kept him on a short leash, mindful of the crowds. Johanna's father pointed out signs detailing the waterfall's history, and her mother commented on how the water was especially strong this time of year due to the snowmelt from higher elevations. Eventually they reached a viewpoint where the water crashed into a deep pool below. Rainbow arcs shimmered in the spray, mesmerizing Johanna. She felt a surge of wonder. How could such beauty and such danger coexist in the same forest? She turned to Rex, who eyed the roaring water with mild curiosity. Tentatively, she rested a hand on his back. He twisted his head, gave her a reassuring, doggy grin, and Johanna smiled for real. Pure, unguarded happiness. The memory of that day in the pine clearing no longer paralyzed her. She felt safe with her family, safe with Rex watching over her. As the group strolled back to the parking area, something caught Rex's attention. The shepherd's ears went rigid. He tensed, letting out a low growl. Benno followed his gaze. Standing near the edge of the forest, behind a cluster of pine trees, was the stray. Johanna's heart froze. Even though she was with her parents, with Rex, fear clawed at her chest. The stray dog appeared thinner, its fur even more ragged. Eyes locked on the group, it stood there panting, uncertain whether to approach or flee. Benno gripped Rex's leash more firmly. "Stay back," he warned the rest of them quietly. Johanna, her parents, and her mother's friend, who had also joined, took a few steps away. Yet instead of attacking, the stray simply stared, trembling slightly. A hint of foam clung to its mouth, signs of dehydration or illness perhaps. Tears welled in Johanna's eyes. This was the same creature that had haunted her nightmares, and yet, in this moment, she saw it differently, desperate and broken, not merely a monster. Local. Animal control officers had just been leaving the waterfall area and were nearby. Benno waved them over, explaining under his breath that this was likely the dangerous stray. They approached with caution, a catchpole and a leash in hand. The dog started to back away, ears plastered against its skull. Rex let out another warning, growl, but Benno gently corrected him. "It's okay, Rex." The officers moved slowly, trying to calm the stray with soft voices. The dog, cornered by the sudden appearance of more people, bared its teeth. For a second, Johanna feared it would bolt or attack. Her father quickly shielded her and her stomach clenched. One of the officers managed to loop the catchpole around the stray's neck, applying gentle pressure. The dog yelped but was too weak to put up much fight. Within moments they had it restrained, though it snapped at the air in panic. They pulled back, careful not to choke the animal. The second officer quickly offered water from a bottle, but the dog remained too agitated to accept. Johanna stood transfixed. Her nightmares had never ended this way. Here was the attacker, captured. She felt her breath hitch as she realized she didn't want to see it harmed. She just wanted it to not hurt anyone else. Benno gave Johanna a reassuring look. "You're safe, it's over." She nodded slowly, tears in her eyes. It took a moment to process that the story she had feared so deeply might finally be coming to a close. The officers led the stray to a waiting van. They explained that they would take it to a shelter in Freiburg for a veterinarian's assessment. If the dog wasn't too aggressive or ill, it might be rehabilitated. If not, well, it was too soon to say. Johanna's father placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, sensing her turbulent emotions. "That dog won't hurt you again," he said. "You don't have to be afraid anymore." Johanna gazed at the van pulling away. She felt relief, yes, but also an unexpected pang of sympathy. "It must have been so scared," she whispered. Her mother pressed a gentle kiss on her temple. "Sometimes fear turns to aggression, especially in animals. But you survived this, Johanna. You're brave." On the ride home, they were all subdued. The events played through Johanna's mind: the initial attack, Rex's intervention, the sudden reappearance by the waterfalls, and the final capture. The forest that had once frightened her now seemed a place of both danger and redemption. She realized that fear wasn't something that vanished overnight, but it could be faced. Over the next weeks, Johanna gradually realized she no longer jumped at every stray noise. She continued walking with her parents in the forest, though never alone, occasionally meeting Benno and Rex. She sometimes asked questions about the stray dog. A letter from the shelter eventually arrived, updating them that the dog was malnourished and traumatized. Unfortunately, it remained highly aggressive with staff. The shelter was working with a specialized trainer, but the outcome was uncertain. At 6 years old, Johanna was just beginning to understand that not every story in life has a perfect happy ending. Some end with heartbreak or complicated truths. But she learned that with support, with someone to stand by you, whether it's family, friends, or a protective German shepherd, you could face even the darkest corners of the forest. Meanwhile, Rex became a familiar figure in her life. Sometimes Benno would bring Rex by the bakery, where Johanna's mother would give the dog a special treat, with Benno's permission, of course. Johanna would pat Rex's sturdy back, feeling the warmth of his fur and the rumble of his breathing. His presence always reminded her that she wasn't alone, and that bravery could be found in unexpected forms. Toward the end of that summer, Triberg held a small town festival near the main square. Local artisans displayed their crafts, the bakery sold fresh pastries, and children played games around the fountain. Tourists mingled with residents, sampling sausages and admiring traditional Black Forest hats adorned with bright red pom-poms. Johanna's family set up a stall to showcase her father's cuckoo clocks and hand-carved figurines. Her mother kept an eye on the bakery stand, where lines of customers waited for a taste of her famous pretzels. Johanna wandered around, clutching her father's hand, excited by the music and the bustle. She spotted Benno chatting with neighbors, Rex sitting obediently at his side. She tugged her father's sleeve, asking if she could go say hello. Rex greeted her with a gentle wag of the tail. She knelt and wrapped her arms around his thick neck in a brief, heartfelt hug. The memory of his courageous intervention never left her. Every time she saw him, she was reminded of how differently things could have ended that day if not for the German shepherd's swift, selfless action. "You look happier than ever," Benno observed, smiling. Johanna looked up, beaming. "I am. Thank you, Mr. Schubert. Thank you, Rex." Rex let out a soft whine of contentment. The festival noise swirled around them, clinking glasses, accordion music, laughter. Yet in that moment, Johanna felt peaceful, grounded in the knowledge that life could move forward, no matter how scary it once seemed. That evening, back in her bedroom, Johanna lay awake gazing out the window. The moon illuminated the pines at the edge of the yard, casting long, quiet shadows. She clutched Minnie the bunny, now cleaned and stitched up from where it had been, dropped in the clearing, and let her thoughts wander. She remembered how helpless she had felt when the stray dog attacked, how certain she'd be hurt. She remembered the swirl of pine needles, the sting of fear, and then the burst of hope when Rex appeared. She felt a surge of gratitude for all who had helped her, her parents, Benno, the caring townspeople who'd shown support. Most of all, she understood something new. She wasn't the same little girl who had snuck through the backyard gate months before. She had faced something frightening and survived. She felt older, wiser, resilient. She turned onto her side, hugging Minnie close. "Good night," she whispered, as if to reassure herself that she truly was safe. Outside, a soft breeze whispered through the branches. As Johanna grew older, she never forgot the day a German shepherd named Rex saved her life. Sometimes she would see photos from that summer in Triberg, or she would pass by the clearing, which now felt less haunted. Eventually, she'd move on to higher grades, make new friends, and find fresh interests. But whenever she felt afraid, before a big test at school or on stage in a recital, she would picture Rex lunging between her and danger. The image would calm her, reminding her of what it meant to stand strong in the face of fear. Benno and Rex remained in Triberg, living in a cozy cottage near a cluster of pine trees. On weekends, Johanna's family might drop by, bringing fresh pastries. Johanna would skip alongside Rex on gentle hikes, marveling at how a dog could be so gentle yet so fierce when it mattered most. In the local newspaper, the Schwarzwälder Bote, an article eventually appeared titled "Bravery in a Small Town, German Shepherd Saves Child." It briefly recounted the story of how Rex intervened to stop an attack on 6-year-old Johanna. Though the words were simple, the impact remained deep for anyone who read it. Many pinned the article to their fridge or posted it in their shops, a testament to the bond between humans and animals. Life went on, as life does. Seasons changed. Snow blanketed the Black Forest in winter, only to melt into bright spring blossoms. Summertime brought tourists and the sparkle of laughter around the waterfalls. Autumn turned the leaves to gold and russet before they fell. Through it all, Johanna carried with her a quiet confidence, born from having confronted darkness and found light. And so, the memory of that single dramatic day, when a wild dog threatened a little girl's life and a loyal German shepherd intervened, became more than just a frightening incident. It became a story of courage, empathy, and the enduring hope that even in a dangerous moment, help could come bounding out of the shadows. It was about resilience in the aftermath of fear, and the recognition that kindness, whether from a human or an animal, could forever transform a life. Whenever Johanna recollected the clearing among the pines, she no longer trembled. Instead, she recalled the hush of the forest, the sunbeams dancing through branches, and the thunderous bark of her savior. She remembered love stronger than fear, a lesson that would guide her well beyond childhood, shaping the woman she would someday become.